plumbers. We're plumbers.
On today's show, gas line inspections in Houston. John Eccles. Richard Side.
That was the dry run. That was the dry.
Hey, we're good on the intro, right?
Oh my God. I don't know why I just totally dazed out.
There you go. On today's show, gas line inspections in Houston.
I'm John Eccles.
Richard Sod.
So let's dive right in. Gas line inspections. We get a ton of phone calls, ton of emails about the title gas line inspection, which is funny because when you actually talk to you customers, what you're actually asking about is normally gas leaks and you need it inspected to solve that problem, or there's some sort of issue with your gas system where you're needing an inspection in order to get service or retain service. So there's a couple different ways that this can go, and I think that we're going to go over all of them kind of quickly at a 10,000 foot view so you get a real good idea of what we're talking about, and then we can tell you what to expect. Okay, so type 1's pretty simple, right? If you've moving into or have had a vacant house, maybe it's a rent house, I'm not sure the situation, but it's been vacant for over a year, the city's going to require what?
Gas line inspection.
Gas line inspection. Normally, the gas will not be on your home that long. Normally, it's been turned off a long time before. And in order to move in and turn that back on, they're going to want a gas line inspection of the premises. That's pretty cut and dry. You have to do it. You're going to have to get a city inspection. City's going to come out after we do the inspection of the gas system, which we'll go into later on what all that entails. But the city will come out, inspect it. Once that's done, you can get your system turned back on. Pretty simple, right?
That's exactly right.
Type 2 is a little different. You're living in the home, you get an urgent gas leak, you smell gas, something's going on with your gas system, you know it's not right, you're not sure what to do. Well, in both instances, you're gonna end up with a plumbing company at your home.
Absolutely.
Right? So, instant 1, a lot of people call CenterPoint, right? And CenterPoint is
gas provider.
the gas provider.
Not a service provider.
All right?
They're in the business of selling a dangerous product.
That's right.
We are in the business of providing a service to fix that.
That's right. So if you call them, what are they gonna do?
Typically, they're going to pull your meter or they're going to lock you out.
All right?
And then they're going to tell you, and it's usually when it's 30 degrees outside,
Absolutely.
so you have no heat. And they're going to tell you, hey, you need to call a plumbing company.
Right? And so that's where you end up with us. So what ends up happening is when they do that, obviously they're shutting off your gas. You can't get it back on until you have us come out and address the leak. In an emergency situation, I tell everybody, call CenterPoint. It is a dangerous product, as Richard said. You do not want that in your house because, obviously a lot of things can happen. We don't have to go into that. So you want it addressed either way, and the quicker the better in this instant. So that goes right into gas line inspection, what to expect when the plumbing company actually gets out to the house. A couple things we're going to do is exactly what Richard said. We're going to comb through the home to make sure that your gas system is up to current code. Believe it or not, things change, right? Valves become safer. They notice that an old valve has something wrong with it that they don't want. Well, instead of, as they become safer, they don't just shut down every house that might have an old valve. As it becomes an issue, you change it out. Piping gets changed out because it gets old and rusted. Flexes get changed out for the same reason. So the first thing that you're going to expect is a plumber's going to come in, go to every gas appliance, check your gas piping to make sure that everything's up to code, right? Once that happens, they're going to take a gauge. They're going to disconnect your gas. They're going to put a gauge on it, right? And they're going to pressurize your system with air. And they're going to make sure that it holds to the appropriate amount of pressure. And if it holds, you're good to go. If it leaks, now we're coming into, okay, now we play, troubleshooting time. Where do we think it's leaking? We start isolation tests. We start trying to limit down where we might see it. Obviously, if you have an active leak, like option 2 that we were telling you about, then you kind of smell it. Obviously, we know in the house round about where it might be. So once all that happens, right, we pressurize it. We either fix the leak or it's already holding pressure. We fix all the code upgrades. That's when the inspection takes place. We call the city out. They take care of it. If it's the annual gas test, which was option 1, then the homeowner, because y'all have the account with CenterPoint, you call CenterPoint, they activate you. Option 2, depending on which way you called us, if you called us first or second, if CenterPoint has taken the meter or locked you out, you have to call them again to have them come back out. So there's a couple of hurdles, I guess you could say, in the second option that you're gonna have to deal with, but it's absolutely well worth it. Again, when you're talking about gas, it is a dangerous product. You wanna make sure that it's taken care of immediately. Again, like Richard said at the beginning of the show, if you have a question and you're just not sure what step to take, call us. We're here to take every call, every question, and guide you in the right direction.
You ready for this?
Let's pretend it's cold. We're talking about freezing pipes.
Okay. On today's show, preparing your plumbing for winter.
Let's talk about, just real briefly, about winters in Houston, right? So we
have those?
We do have them. A matter of fact, right? I know you're not popular with this, but the Farmer's Almanac says this should be a pretty devastating winter for the Houston area. So with that being said, we want to go through a few things. First of all, just because it dips right below freezing doesn't mean that everything in your house is going to freeze and explode. And
what do you mean? That's what the news tells me.
Well, what they're telling you is, and you should take it very seriously because when it does happen, it could be very traumatic. The temperature needs to drop below and stay below freezing for a long time. If it just dips below and then heats back up, that's not enough time to freeze the amount of water that we're talking about, unless the temperature is far enough below freezing to speed up that process. Let's go over a few tips to help you prevent that. Number one thing, wrap your pipes. Exposed piping, pipe in the attic, things that are susceptible, you need to wrap them with insulation. It's pretty easy to do as long as you grab the right size insulation. It's really simple. It has tape on it. It goes around. It tapes together. It's not hard. Especially stuff that's out in the elements, risers to your house, your riser to your sprinklers, all those things definitely need to, because they're out there in the elements of the wind, which, believe it or not, you've heard wind chill factor. The wind definitely affects how cold something is. So when you have cold water, freezing temps, and the wind's blowing on it, that's not a good thing.
Well, if you can't find any products to help you cover and get ready for that evening, wrap a towel around it.
That's right.
We're probably going to get some hate mail telling you to wrap a towel around it, and that's okay. Because you know what? We have both wrapped towels around piping that were exposed.
Absolutely.
And guess what? We didn't freeze.
Nope.
So it does work. It keeps the wind, it keeps that cold bitterness off of, let's say, the hose bib. And you can even do it with your sprinkler backflow system. Let's talk about hoses. When it freezes, what's going to happen is it's going to break your hose, and it could possibly back it up into that hose bib and break it where it's behind the wall.
Absolutely.
So you want to disconnect that hose and make sure it's drained of water, or it's going to freeze and break.
That's normally the number one thing that's going to burst. We definitely want to make sure those are wrapped and make sure that they're drained. We're not going to go into detail about that, but on our Facebook page, we have a great step-by-step blog about how to winterize your backflow. So please check that out if you need that done. It doesn't take long. It's pretty simple, but check that out for detailed instructions. Let's talk about inside the house now. What can we do for some things inside of the house? All that stuff was kind of outdoors.
Right.
Indoors, what are some of the things that we can do?
Typically, kitchen sinks are on an outside wall.
Right.
Some of your plumbing cabinets, as far as lavatories, are on exterior walls. Anything that's on an exterior wall and you're really nervous about it, we're having an extended period of coldness, open up those cabinet doors. Let the ambient heat from your house permeate into that cabinet.
Absolutely. Another thing that you can do, and again, we might get kicked back for this, but leave a little bit of water dripping or running out of your faucets. Again, moving water has less tendency to freeze.
Oh man, that sounds expensive. Leaving my faucets dripping.
It's a lot cheaper, I guarantee you, than the repair you'd have to pay for a broken pipe. And last but not least, inside your house, leave the heat on. You definitely want the heat inside of the home to be warm. It helps keep everything else warm, just like anything else. Just like the sun outside, right? When the sun comes out and it heats everything up, well, everything's got to cool off before anything gets cold. The concrete, anything. So everything in your house is going to hold that heat to help keep everything warm. And with your plumbing, that does matter, especially when we're talking about the temperatures that we're going to be facing this winter.
And what that also means is when you go out of town, don't turn your heat off. Maybe you want to try to save money. Don't do it. Leave the heat on a constant temperature. Whether it's 50 or 60, okay, that's above freezing, right?
Yeah.
Because when you come home and your house is flooded and it's coming out the front door and the back door, it isn't going to be pretty. And how many times have we seen that?
That's not good at all.
I've seen that a lot. So don't do it. Leave your heat on, period.
That's it.
That's it. That's exactly right. How about anything else that we can tell them, any tips that we can give them? What are you thinking? We told them about the towel, wrapping it, wrap your hose bibs with a towel if you don't have something, wrap the sprinkler backflow if you don't have something, turn that heat on, make sure it stays on. I think we've done a pretty good job, Mr. Eccles, on that.
I think they're covered. Now you just need a little bit of luck.
And when something goes wrong, we're always here for you.
That's right.
On today's show, it's open season on water heaters.
No. Water heater maintenance season.
Oh, I guess I was thinking about ducks.
I'm John Eccles.
Richard Sod.
So we're here today to talk about water heater maintenance season.
Open season on water heaters.
And what does that mean? So what we're talking about when we're talking about that is when is it okay or when is it time to have your maintenance done to your water heater?
Now.
Absolutely.
Now is the time, not tomorrow, now.
We're probably a few weeks late according to what we like to see. We like to see people do this in the fall before the winter because the winter is the time when the water heater is going to go through its most strenuous time and its most work, right? And and we're going to explain that why. Why would that be, Richard? Why is the winter the hardest time for the water heater?
You're having to cook water a lot more. And let me define that a little bit. In Texas, we're one of the only states that allow water heaters in the attic. That's right. Most of our water heaters are in the attic. So being in the attic, it's going to get 30-something degrees in the attic. Granted, the water heater does have insulation on it. But in the summertime, think about this. In the summertime, it's not having to work hardly at all. That's right. It's not cycling on and off all the time. During the winter, when you get 30s and 40s up in that attic, it's having to cook that water a lot more. And it's not nearly as efficient as when it was 150 degrees in your attic, right?
That's right.
So you want to make sure that the performance of that water heater is at the optimal that it can be. That takes maintenance to be able to do that. It's sucking in air out of that attic and it gets particles in it.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So when you're demanding that hot water during the winter, it's having to work that much harder. It needs to be breathing correctly. It needs to be burning the fuel correctly and keeping the water as hot as it can be for as long as it can be.
That's right.
So it quits cooking it all the time, let's call it.
That's right.
Right?
So it's efficient.
Bottom line is efficiency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now what about tankless water heaters? I know they're a little different, right?
A little bit different. So tankless is, you're not holding any water for it to sit there and cook all day and all night, right?
That's right.
So it's a pass-through system. So when you demand your hot water in your kitchen sink, shower, tub, wherever you're demanding that hot water, it's passing through like a radiator. So you need to do maintenance on those, of course. You need to descale those. Once a year is a great time, but there's no preference whether it's winter or summer. You just need to do it once a year. Right. It's not having to sit there and cook and work all day.
That's one of the benefits of having a tankless, actually, right?
That's correct.
Is that whole element. Now, both of them need the maintenance, right? And I would think on a yearly basis is what we recommend. Both of them need a once-a-year maintenance. Tank we absolutely recommend in the fall, going in the winter, because of the whole cooking up and down. The tankless still recommend once a year. There's not really a preference. That we do know that people tend, for whatever reason, to cook and use their water more at home during the winter because people are inside, not outside. So the interior water gets used a little bit more. So that's why we recommend that. But again, with the tankless, without the cooking up and down, it doesn't really matter when you get it done, but it does need to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the maintenancing of a tank versus a tankless is going to be different.
Yes.
So the equipment that we have to use will be different. You need to do it once a year, though, and that tankless will last you beyond 20 years.
Yeah.
Now, a tank in Houston will last you between 7 and 10 if you do the right thing.
Absolutely.
And that means maintenance of that unit once a year, which I would say 99% of the people in Houston don't do. But I can tell you this, if you have a car and you don't change the oil, how long is the car going to last?
Not very long.
That's the problem. So you could probably go beyond 10 years of your tank unit if you would give it some maintenance.
Absolutely.
And it's not that expensive. What would you say that our average tickets are on tank and a tankless?
I'll put a range on it. Normally, it's probably between $150 to $300, somewhere around there, for either unit. I'm just saying. Of course, tank is probably going to be on the cheaper side because of the equipment that we have to use for the tankless is a little bit more, but it's somewhere in that range.
Right. Now, where people really go wrong in the attic on their tank units, it breathes from the bottom. And it picks up all that insulation, the fiberglass, the dust that's whirling around that attic, and it just sucks it right in. Now, sometimes it will create a complete failure, right? The pilot goes off and it just wrecks the system. But a lot of times it doesn't. It just doesn't get enough air to breathe. And if you guys remember back in elementary school, I think is when we learned this, it takes oxygen to make fire. Right?
Absolutely.
So it needs the oxygen to burn efficiently and effectively.
Yeah.
So by cleaning out and maintaining your water heater, you are giving it the best chance of survival that you can and getting the years that you're paying for out of it.
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line. As usual, we're always here for you.
Always. Just a phone call away.
John, Richard, we're in the office. Any questions, whether we did it, put it in, you want to know more, you want to know, okay, I'm not a big maintenance person, how do I stay away from it? We'll be happy to talk to you around it. Give us a call anytime. Thank you for watching.
Thank y'all so much.